much for having me, and also thank you, Tim, for already promoting it so well. So really nice that I can be here. Yes, I'm currently a collaborator with the Green Web Foundation since half a year actually. So yeah, I'm starting to get more and more into these topics and also interlinking them more with the questions on environmental justice and climate justice. And I'm going to talk about first what the Green Web Foundation is currently doing, like what is our current mission and vision, then what we have been doing so far and some of the success stories. And then in the third part, I want to talk a bit about what is our vision for the next year and what are like kind of the key areas that we want to work on. So yeah, feel free to drop your questions into the chat at any time. I will try to answer them. I don't have a technical background though, so just as a warning, but we will be super happy to also answer them via email later. So yeah. So who is the Green Web Foundation and what are we actually doing? We're a Dutch nonprofit, but we also have an office in Berlin since 2019. And we're on a mission to make the internet fossil-free by 2030. It's very important, as also Tim said before, that we want to work on the fossil-free definition of the internet and not on a climate neutral definition. So we don't want to work with a lot of carbon offsetting projects or this carbon offsetting idea in mind, but really that the internet becomes fossil-free. Because it's currently the largest coal-powered machine, and in comparison to other countries, as Tim had also already said, it's one of the largest emitters and is nearly as much emitting as the entire aviation industry. And what's really important and what has been shaped, especially in the last 2 years, is that it's not only this vision that we want the internet to be fossil-free by 2030, but we also want it to be an open and public good. So this is kind of the interlink also with the digital rights community to really ensure that the internet is open, that everything is practiced in the open and through open source. And we believe that if this happens within the open, with open practices and open source, then this will also advance us in making the internet fossil-free by 2030. For the last decade, the Green Web Foundation has built a lot of open decision-making infrastructure to track and to enable the transition to a fossil-free internet. CO2JS is also one of the examples. So thank you, Tim, also for that, that we just published recently. And we have actually the biggest data set to check if websites run on renewable energies. Until 2019, it was accessed over 2 billion times. So it's a really highly used database. And yeah, people around the world can use it because it's open source as well. So what's really important is that open source is also a key lever of change for us. So that others can learn both with us, from us, and that, yeah, we can like together advance the state of the web. What has been the story so far? Actually, everything started with two guys, René Post and Arend-Jan Tetteroe, who created the Green Web Check already in 2006, and which was a database about the kind of energy that powers the internet green. And also they wanted to visualize whether that energy comes from renewables or fossil fuels. So they wanted to draw like this kind of differentiation between renewables and fossil fuels. In 2010, the Green Web app was developed. That was basically the idea to display the greenness of a website and also to enable users to see this on their own browsers. So we see it's also a bit of a slow project. Because yeah, it's very like it's already there since 2006, but it took a bit of time also to get formulated. In 2011 then, so actually, yeah, 5 years later, the foundation was finally founded in the Netherlands and registered as a Dutch nonprofit. And then in 2019, so actually 8 years later, Chris Adams joined. And he was really keen on supporting the Green Web Foundation and ensured some funding from the Prototype Fund, which is a German funder who supports any kind of open source technology, open source software, and any kinds of open source projects. So that was actually when this idea of open practices also came into the organization. And Chris really wanted to start developing prototypes and improve the open data set. In 2019, also already 2 billion people had accessed the Green Web Check. And now actually, since 2019, or especially in 2020, quite a lot has happened. And I think some people are also not so aware of it because it's still a big restructuring. But actually, the idea was to better meet the current challenges of the climate crisis and to really also build an expertise, to build a training program around it, and to really also build prototypes that work with the open data set we have, but also with other open source tools to really ensure the greening of the web is actually advanced. So we also wanted to start working more with internet practitioners and really with people who actually work with the code, and to kind of demonstrate how a fossil-free internet could also look like through different prototypes. One of the projects we did in 2020 was Branch Magazine. This is a magazine that is for people who dream about a sustainable and just internet for all. And Branch Magazine is also an open source project, but also the website is completely green and like kind of sets a standard for how websites could look like from this online magazine. That was with the support of Climate Kick. And we also launched a fellowship program that we have just launched now again. So if you're interested, you can still apply until December 8th. And in this fellowship program, the idea is really to support emerging leaders who work on digital rights or who already work on climate justice, to bridge these movements and to further advance this intersection. In 2021, Michelle Thorne joined, who is at the Mozilla Foundation, and started to sharpen even more the Green Web Fellowship program. And she also supported to open the office in Berlin and to advance also Branch Magazine that in 2021 won the award for digital humanities at Ars Electronica, which is a really big digital media festival. It's really cool if you want to check it out. I can post a link later. And then one of our fellows, Hannah Smith, also joined the team this year. She's now the operations and training manager, and we are kind of building the organization and making it bigger and bigger. We also had Justin Smithwith and Roel Teunissen join our team to improve especially the data platform and the support. And we also currently work with Olivia Saramba, who is a Django developer, to also improve the dataset and the directory. And finally, I also joined the team as a collaborator. So you see, there has been quite a lot going on, and it's still in a learning and shaping process, but we kind of define 3 key areas that we want to focus on in the next coming years. So what's next? My third part of the talk. We basically see three main areas where we see that we can help, but that we also really want to work on. One is the data platforms and our partnerships program. So we are currently working on refining this and making it even better, and ensuring that the data quality is still high. And we do this with developers, and currently are building different services around it to really have this open green web data properly accessible. The second part is that we're currently exploring the idea of a Green Web Studio and also a training program. The training program has already kicked off, so we've been working with internet practitioners and other different people who are interested in coding to really advance the state of the art. And the Green Web Studio is kind of emerged out of this idea of the CO2 JS that we really want to work more on building these prototypes, because we've seen that like we say, this is a pattern that, like, if these patterns are in the open, if they're available on GitHub, they often just get applied and get applied into other companies or organizations, and that can really bring change. And then finally, we're also working on the fellowships and the thought leadership. So with the fellowships, we're currently training different professionals and emerging leaders in this intersection of digital rights and climate justice. And we also want to build a bigger network and bigger partners to really build a momentum around this. So we're currently continuing and growing our portfolio, refining it as well, and we work with different partners, and always with this bigger idea of making the internet fossil-free by 2030 and doing it in the open. So this is like the baseline. So yeah, I'm happy to answer some questions, and if you want to keep up to date, we also have a blog where we post quite a lot on. So anything that we're doing, basically, we post about it on the blog. So I can highly recommend you to also check that out on our website. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katrin. And so please also post the website of the Green Web Foundation on the chat, and also the blog part. And as a question, maybe I can make you one question about the countries where you see the most interest regarding the activities of the Green Web Foundation. Which are the countries that are interested in your operations?
So far, we've really tried to do it globally, and we are based in the Netherlands, so we are also based in Berlin. So obviously this kind of shapes a bit that we're very strong in the European network. But generally, we're really trying to globalize it, and we get a lot of interest from other countries as well. So for example, now we have launched a fellowship program, and there was a lot of people from Africa who also already work on renewable energy and green tech, who were also interesting. So I think, like, we can't really say that there are specific countries. Obviously, it's a better network somewhere, but the basic idea really has momentum around the world, I actually have to say.
Okay. And so one other question. Do you have some recommendation to Sloweb Association due to the experience of the Green Web Foundation and the evolution of the Green Web Foundation? Any suggestion?
I mean, I think one of the key moments was definitely to push all the data that we had and also the prototypes that we're doing into the open, like really ensuring open source at every single level. Because it actually not only helps the organization itself, but also other people. And it's really about, like, embracing that you're sometimes in a process as an organization, but that you really want to learn together with the communities that you're in. And I think what has helped quite a lot also was to work with certain communities. So for example, we have the climate action tech community that is very interlinked with the Green Web Foundation, and other communities also around digital rights and climate justice now with the fellowship. So I think this approach to work with communities and be really embedded with these communities is actually very strong, because there's so much talent and so many interesting people out there that then also, if they see the cause and if they support it, that can actually be a really, really great lever for change in general.
Okay, thank you very much. And so there's a question from the public, from Paolo. How can we incentivize companies and users in recognizing the importance of sustainable web development? Because too often the only thing that matters is, does the algorithm work? And if so, then I'm happy, but it's not the real truth, maybe.
I mean, yeah, I guess there is quite a lot of interest already from companies. So I don't think it needs a lot of incentives necessarily. It's more the question how these companies define actually sustainability or sustainable web development. And that's where it's important to like kind of refine it. But I actually have to say that it's not such a question on incentivizing, because the momentum is here. Like there is people who are more and more interested, for example, in green coding. It's more the question how to, kind of bring it into the right direction. So it's not only a question about efficiency or efficient development, but rather a question of, for example, working in the open, ensuring that human rights are met. So like really not only focusing on efficiency or also what you said, Tim, on the carbon tunnel, but more on the other areas that come with it. So I think that's actually the real challenge rather than the incentivizing organizations.
Thank you, Katrin.